Elena Carter walked through the halls of Silver Lake High like a shadow. No one smiled, no one waved. She wasn't expecting them to. New places always felt like this, cold, judging, waiting for you to mess up. She'd only been in California for a week, but she could already feel it. The expensive clothes, the perfect hair, the loud laughter. Silver Lake wasn't just a school. It was a stage. And she didn't fit the script. Students brushed past her like she didn't exist. Teachers barely glanced her way. Elena kept her head down, clutched her sketchbook, and hoped she could just blend into the background. She wasn't here to make friends. She just wanted to survive. But survival became harder the moment Braden Walsh noticed her. Braden was everything this school worshipped. Rich, popular, loud, and dangerous in the way spoiled kids always are. His father owned half the town. His confidence came not from talent, but entitlement. No one ever said no to him. No one ever dared. The first time he noticed Elena was in art class. She sat in the corner, quietly sketching a city skyline in charcoal. Her lines were sharp, her vision clear. The teacher hadn't even looked at it. But Braden did. He leaned over her shoulder and smirked. "Trying to draw your way out of a trailer park?" Elena didn't respond. She didn't even flinch. That irritated him more than an insult would have. The next day, things escalated. In the hallway, his friends laughed just loud enough for her to hear. Braden mimicked her walk behind her back, dragging his feet exaggeratedly while the others howled. Elena kept walking, eyes straight ahead, hands clenched tight inside her pockets. At lunch, she sat alone, as usual. Her tray had a sandwich, a banana, and a bottle of water. Nothing special, but enough. Braden and his crew spotted her from across the room. He didn't say a word. He just picked up his tray and walked over. Without hesitation, he stood beside her table and stared down like a king addressing a servant. "This seat taken?" Elena didn't reply. He looked at her food, curled his lip, and then, without warning, flipped the entire tray upside down. Food splattered across the table. Water spilled onto her sketchbook. The banana rolled to the floor. The cafeteria went quiet, all conversations frozen mid-sentence. "Oops," Braden said with a mocking smile. Elena sat perfectly still. For a moment, it looked like she might break. Her shoulders rose, then sank again. Slowly, she reached for a napkin, wiped her soaked notebook, then stood up. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She picked up her ruined lunch, tossed it into the bin, and walked out of the cafeteria. Laughter echoed behind her. No one stopped him. No one helped her. Outside, the wind was sharp, but Elena didn't feel it. Her fingers were cold, but steady. Her eyes were dry, but something burned behind them. That evening, her mother noticed the stains on her backpack. Melissa Carter, always observant, paused for a second longer than usual. Elena said nothing at first, but later, while eating dinner in silence, she finally spoke. "Some boy at school thinks I'm nothing." Melissa set down her fork. Her face remained calm, but her eyes sharpened. She didn't ask questions, not yet. She just nodded once. Elena wasn't sure what that meant. She only knew tomorrow would be different, but Braden had no idea who he had humiliated. And when the truth came out, he would finally learn. He didn't own this school. Not anymore. Morning sunlight spilled across the driveway as Elena stood, silently, by the front door. Her backpack hung low on one shoulder, still damp from yesterday's mess. The bruises on her pride weren't visible, but they lingered. Her mother, Melissa Carter, stepped out of her office already dressed in her black judicial robe. Elena blinked, confused. "I'm driving you today," Melissa said calmly, picking up her keys. They didn't speak much during the ride. Elena stared out the window while her mother drove with quiet purpose. When the black government SUV pulled into Silver Lake High's parking lot, conversations stopped mid-sentence. Phones slipped from hands. Whispers rose like smoke. The vehicle came to a slow halt near the front entrance. Melissa stepped out first, heels clicking against the pavement. Her robe flowed with authority, her badge gleaming under the sun. Teachers straightened their postures. Students stared, their expressions stuck somewhere between awe and confusion. Elena followed, keeping her eyes low. She had never seen the school this silent. The front office door opened before they reached it. "Principal?" Weller stood there nervously, adjusting her glasses and forcing a smile. Her voice cracked slightly as she spoke. "Judge Carter, we weren't expecting you." "I'm not here for a meeting," Melissa replied. "I'm here for accountability." Inside, the tension thickened. Staff members shifted uncomfortably. Melissa's presence filled the room like thunderclouds before a storm. The principal gestured awkwardly toward her office. "Please, come in." The three entered. Elena sat quietly while Melissa remained standing. "I understand," Melissa began, "that my daughter was harassed yesterday in full view of students and staff." Principal Weller looked down. "There was an incident, yes, but I believe—" Melissa raised one hand. "No, let's not soften it. My child was humiliated, her belongings ruined, and your staff did absolutely nothing. That's not an incident. That's a failure." Before the principal could respond, the door opened again. In walked Braden, Walsh, followed by his parents, well-dressed, smug, radiating money and entitlement. His mother wore pearls. His father, a navy blazer and an arrogant smirk. Braden's confident stride faltered the second he saw who was sitting beside Principal Weller. Judge Carter. His eyes widened. Color drained from his face. He stumbled slightly before regaining posture, but the swagger was gone. "Mrs. Carter," Braden's father started, "I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding." Melissa turned to him slowly, eyes unreadable. "You may address me as Judge Carter." He hesitated, then chuckled nervously. "Judge Carter, boys are just rough sometimes. It's how teenagers behave." Melissa didn't blink. "Bullies thrive when adults excuse their behavior. Your son's actions weren't a joke. They were deliberate, cruel, and unprovoked." Braden shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His mother interjected, "Surely, you don't plan on making a federal issue out of a school lunch?" Melissa finally sat down, folding her hands calmly. "This is about something deeper. A culture that protects the privileged while punishing the quiet. I've seen it in courtrooms. I won't tolerate it in my daughter's school." Braden's father scoffed. "This sounds personal." Melissa leaned forward slightly. "It became personal the moment your son decided to dehumanize mine in front of an audience, and your school enabled it." The room fell silent. "Principal," Weller cleared her throat, her face flushed. "We will launch a full investigation. This certainly warrants disciplinary action." Melissa nodded. "Start with the faculty who witnessed it. Then move to the students who encouraged it." Braden's mother's tone sharpened. "This could ruin his future. Do you really want to destroy a boy's life over a few harmless jokes?" Melissa didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her words landed like hammer strikes. His future was never in danger. Elena's dignity was. You raised a boy who believed he could get away with anything. Today, that ends. Principal. Weller picked up a notepad. Braden will be suspended immediately. A formal letter will be sent to the district. Counseling will also be mandatory. Braden's face twisted with disbelief. His father stood, furious. You'll regret this. Melissa turned to him, her gaze sharp as glass. Only people who did something wrong ever say that. She stood, motioning to Elena. They left the office without another word. In the hallway, whispers exploded. Students stared, slack-jawed, as the quiet girl who used to sit alone now walked beside one of the most powerful women in the state. Phones clicked. Videos started recording. Something had shifted. Braden remained inside, stunned. His empire, built on arrogance, had cracked. And this was only the beginning. The mood at Silver Lake High had changed overnight. Gone was the usual buzzing noise of careless gossip. In its place, uncertainty loomed. Students exchanged glances. In the hallways, unsure whether to speak, whisper, or simply stay out of it. By mid-morning, almost everyone had heard. Elena Carter's mother wasn't just someone's mom. She was Judge Melissa Carter, the woman known for sentencing billionaires, corrupt officials, and celebrities without hesitation. News traveled quickly. Teachers murmured in staff rooms, students scrolled articles under desks. Several had even found old video clips of Judge Carter on national news, delivering powerful verdicts with calm authority. Now, that authority had landed right inside their school. Braden walked through the corridor like a ghost. No cheers, no high fives. No one slapped him on the back or called his name. People parted when he passed, not out of respect, but from discomfort. His swagger had vanished. His shoulders sagged slightly under the weight of judgment. His clique followed, unsure whether to remain loyal or distance themselves. In classrooms, no one dared to joke about Elena anymore. When she entered the art room later that morning, a few students looked up from their work, not with ridicule, but with quiet recognition. No one laughed at her sketchbook. No one rolled their eyes. The teacher, Ms. Halloway, walked over and gently placed a new sketch pad on her desk. "I thought you could use a fresh start," she said softly. Elena looked at her for a moment, then nodded. That was all. By lunch, even the cafeteria felt different. The same place where her tray had been flipped now felt like unfamiliar territory. As she walked toward the lunch line, conversations dipped in volume. People watched, uncertain whether to avoid her gaze or offer support. She didn't ask for attention. She never had. But this time, silence didn't feel like rejection. When she passed Braden, he sat at a table near the center, alone. The usual crowd avoided eye contact. He picked at his food with no appetite. As she reached the register, she heard him mutter, just loud enough for her to catch it. "Guess Mommy had to rescue you, huh?" Elena paused. Her hands tightened around her tray. Slowly, she turned and met his eyes. He expected her to ignore it, maybe walk away like before. Not today. She walked back to his table, placed her tray down, and stood calmly across from him. "You're angry," she said, her voice steady. Braden blinked. "What?" "You're furious," she continued, "because, for the first time, people saw you for what you really are. Not a leader, not someone to admire, just a scared boy who hides behind money and noise." His jaw clenched. "You don't know anything about me?" "I don't need to," she replied. "You humiliated someone because you thought they couldn't fight back, but you were wrong. Not because of who my mother is, but because I finally decided to speak." Braden leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "So what now? You think this makes you some kind of hero?" Elena smiled faintly. No, I think it made you irrelevant. She picked up her tray and walked away without looking back. Gasps rippled through the room. A few students nodded quietly. One even clapped under their breath. Braden sat frozen, fists clenched beneath the table. Later that day, during history class, Elena sat near the window as the teacher explained political revolutions. The sunlight hit her notebook just right, illuminating a sketch she had started. A phoenix rising through fire, wings outstretched, eyes fierce. After class, a girl named Riley approached her desk. She usually hung out with Braden's crowd, but looked different today. Quieter. Unsure. Hey, she began, hesitating. That was brave. What you did. Elena closed her notebook. Thanks. I'm sorry I laughed that day. When, the tray. You followed him, Elena said flatly, without accusation. Just a fact. Riley looked down. I did, but I don't think I will anymore. She left before Elena could reply. The final bell rang. Students poured into the parking lot. Some parents waited in expensive cars. Others caught buses. Elena stood by the front entrance, waiting alone. Principal Weller stepped outside, holding a clipboard and adjusting her posture when she spotted Elena. I wanted to let you know, she said with a forced smile. We've launched a full review of our bullying policies. Your mother's concerns have been taken seriously. Elena nodded. They should have been taken seriously without a title. The principal flushed slightly. You're right. Braden watched from a distance. He stood behind a row of parked cars, isolated and silent. No one joined him. No one waved. He had ruled Silver Lake through fear and fake charisma. Now, his throne was gone. Elena didn't need to be loud. She didn't need to prove anything anymore. She had become something far more powerful, respected, and Silver Lake High had finally noticed. A week later, Silver Lake High no longer felt the same. Whispers faded. Glances shifted. The hallways, that once buzzed with Braden Walsh's arrogance, had quieted. He still came to class, still showed up in the cafeteria, but his voice no longer echoed. His jokes fell flat. Laughter never followed him anymore. He walked slower, head down, hoodie pulled over his eyes. Elena, however, carried herself differently. Her shoulders sat higher. Her stride was more certain. She didn't hide behind corners or sketch quietly in fear. People noticed her now, not as the girl who got bullied, but the one who didn't stay broken. Teachers greeted her with warmth. Students who never made eye contact before began nodding respectfully. Some even smiled, cautiously testing the space. Between apology and admiration, in art class, Ms. Halloway unveiled a project for the senior hallway mural. We're choosing one student to lead the design. The wall will reflect courage, growth, and change, she announced, eyes turned to Elena. Some were surprised, others weren't. Ms. Halloway smiled. Elena, would you like to take it on? Elena didn't hesitate. Yes, that afternoon, she stood before the long stretch of empty white wall. Clean, blank, waiting. She imagined every line before touching her brush to the surface. The first stroke came slowly, like breaking silence with a single word. The next day, paint began to fill the emptiness. Colors rose like dawn. A phoenix emerged, fierce, bold, rising from burning feathers, eyes locked forward, wings carved from storm clouds and flame. Behind the creature, jagged silhouettes of shadowy figures faded into ash. Crowds watched as she worked. Some offered compliments. Others stayed silent, but observed with clear respect. Elena didn't paint for recognition. She painted because truth deserved a place that couldn't be ignored. Braden walked past once. He paused at the edge, staring at the wings stretching above him. He didn't speak. She didn't look at him. Later, in English class, their teacher assigned a reflective presentation. "Tell us something you've learned. Not from textbooks, but from life," he instructed. Elena knew what she needed to say. When her turn came, she stepped to the front. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried clearly across the room. "Most people think strength means speaking the loudest," she began. "But real strength is sometimes silent. It waits. It listens. And when it rises, it doesn't shout. It simply stands." No one moved. Even Braden stared, unmoving. "I used to believe that staying quiet made things easier. That shrinking meant safety. But the truth is, when you stay small to protect yourself, you hand power to people who never deserved it." She paused, taking a breath. "I didn't ask for someone else to fight for me. I didn't want pity. I wanted fairness, respect, a voice that didn't shake every time I stood up. My mother didn't step in because I was weak. She stepped in because I finally said, 'Enough.' And that word changed everything." Her eyes scanned the room. Faces that once mocked her now listened without blinking. If you ever feel invisible, remember this: silence is comfortable, but it doesn't heal. Speak, even if your voice trembles. Stand, even if your knees shake. Because once you stop hiding, the world has to see you." She returned to her seat. No applause followed, just stillness, a silence filled with understanding. By the end of the week, the mural was complete. The school board took photos, the district praised the message, and Principal Weller even placed a plaque beneath it. Rise Through the Fire, created by Elena Carter. Students gathered around it between classes. Some took pictures. Others stared longer, absorbing the meaning. Braden avoided the mural. He avoided most things now. His former followers barely spoke to him. At lunch, he sat in the corner where Elena once sat, quiet, alone, forgotten. She saw him one afternoon. Their eyes met briefly. He looked away first. After school, Melissa pulled up as usual. Elena climbed in, her sketch pad tucked under her arm. Melissa glanced at her. "Good day?" Elena smiled faintly. "Yeah, I think so." They drove in silence for a moment before Melissa spoke again. "You know," she said softly, "I didn't protect you because I thought you needed me." "I know," Elena replied, staring out the window. "I did it," Melissa continued, "because I've watched people overlook quiet girls their entire lives. I wanted them to know you weren't alone. But you did the rest." Elena didn't respond. She didn't need to. At the next light, she looked up at the mirror. Her own reflection stared back, no longer nervous, no longer unsure, just steady, just real. She didn't need to roar. She had risen, and everyone had seen it.